The holograms cast an eerie purple glow across High Commander Zextal's crystalline skin as he studied the newly discovered civilization. His serpentine neck arched forward, multifaceted eyes scanning the data streams with growing disdain. The humans, as they called themselves, had barely achieved interplanetary travel. Their technology was a patchwork of different advancement levels: crude chemical rockets alongside quantum communications, basic fusion drives next to sophisticated AI systems. Fascinating, isn't it? Science Officer Miralen's voice carried a note of genuine curiosity. They develop in such unpredictable patterns. Look at their weapons technology. They still maintain vast arsenals of chemical projectile weapons alongside their energy-based systems. Zextal's upper lip curled. The Nexeri Empire had long since abandoned such primitive tools. Inefficient, chaotic. They cling to obsolete technologies like children refusing to discard broken toys. He gestured at another data stream. Their military structure is equally disorganized. No unified planetary defense force. Hundreds of separate armies, navies, air forces. And yet, Miralen interjected carefully, their combat simulations show remarkable effectiveness. Their forces demonstrate unusual adaptability in simulations. Zextal cut her off with a dismissive wave. Theory craft and war games. The Nexeri Empire has conquered 37 civilizations across 12,000 years. We know war, Science Officer. Real war. The human delegate would be arriving soon aboard their primitive diplomatic vessel. The Empire's standard procedure was clear. Offer terms of surrender first. Demonstrate overwhelming force if refused. It was more efficient that way. Less messy. Send the standard greeting package, he ordered. Full display of our fleet's strength, technological capabilities, and historical conquest record. The commander's phosphorescent markings pulsed with mild amusement. Let's save everyone some time. Miralen hesitated. Sir, my preliminary analysis suggests this species might respond better too. Your analysis is noted. Science Officer. Proceed with standard protocols. Aboard the approaching human vessel, Ambassador Sarah Chen watched the Nexeri fleet shimmer against the starfield. The massive ships were living crystal, grown rather than built, beautiful and terrifying. The greeting package played across her neural display, broadcasting the Empire's military might in loving detail. She smiled slightly, though there was no humor in it. They're trying to intimidate us with ship specs and battle footage, she subvocalized to fleet intelligence. Standard conquest protocol, came the reply in her neural link. They've done this 37 times before. Always worked. They think they're dealing with Civilization 38, Chen mused. Have they analyzed our response package yet? Just starting to now. Watching their reactions. Oh, this should be interesting. Back on his command ship, Zextal's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief as he reviewed the human response. Instead of the usual fear or awe, they had sent back their own historical records. Not of victories, of defeats, of disasters, of near-extinction events survived. This makes no sense, he muttered. They're showing us footage of their forces being destroyed, overrun, decimated. Nuclear war simulations, plague scenarios, environmental collapse models. Why would they? Miralen's voice was very quiet. Sir, I don't think these are admissions of weakness. Look at the attached analysis. These are training scenarios, things they prepare for. Expected casualty rates of 90% or higher, and they still fight. Still win. Impossible. No species could maintain military coherence with losses like that. The psychological damage alone would break any rational army. Chen's voice came through suddenly on their command frequency. Good thing humans aren't always rational. Zextal's phosphorescent markings flared in surprise. She shouldn't have been able to breach their communication security that easily. Ambassador Chen, I presume, your species' dedication to military preparation is noted. However, you think it's all theoretical. Simulations and war games, right? There was that same humorless smile in her voice. "Check your historical records, High Commander. Specifically Earth, mid-20th century. A conflict we called World War I. Then check the casualty figures." He did. The numbers stunned him. Entire cities destroyed. Tens of millions dead. "And yet, they rebuilt," Miralan whispered. "They didn't just survive. They came back stronger. And they kept all the weapons, all the tactics that nearly destroyed them. Not because they couldn't develop better ones, but because they wanted to remember." Chen finished. "To stay ready. Your empire conquers worlds, Commander. Humanity. We specialize in surviving anything the universe throws at us, and then learning from it." Zextal's crystalline form vibrated with sudden understanding. The humans weren't showing weakness. They were issuing a warning. Every disaster, every near-extinction event, had only made them more dangerous, more prepared. "Perhaps," he said slowly, his tone shifting from condescension to careful diplomatic courtesy, "we should discuss terms of mutual cooperation instead." Chen's smile was genuine this time. "I thought you'd never ask." In his private chamber later, Zextal reviewed the human historical records again. He had fought species with better technology, stronger weapons, larger armies. But he had never encountered one that turned its own near destruction into a source of strength. One that treated the apocalypse as a training exercise. The Empire had conquered 37 civilizations by being the strongest force they had ever encountered. But humanity had spent its entire existence preparing for forces even stronger than the Nexari. And that, Zextal realized with a shiver of his crystalline form, made them far more dangerous than any enemy they had faced before. They didn't need to be stronger than the Empire. They just needed to survive it. And survival, it seemed, was something humans had turned into an art form. 60 days after first contact, High Commander Zextal received the message he'd been dreading. A rogue Nexari battle group, led by the notorious warlord Krastik, had launched an unauthorized attack on the human colony of New Athens. The humans' response would reveal whether their historical records were mere bravado or something far more terrifying. "Show me," he ordered, his crystalline form rigid with tension. The tactical display sprang to life, showing the battle in real time. Krastik's forces had arrived with overwhelming superiority. 15 capital ships against the colony's 3 defensive frigates and handful of orbital platforms. By all conventional logic, it should have been over in minutes. That was 2 hours ago. The battle was still raging. "Impossible," Zextal's tactical officer whispered. "They're using mining ships as weapons." Indeed, the humans had pressed every civilian vessel into service. Mining lasers, designed to cut through asteroids, were proving surprisingly effective against Nexari crystal hull technology. Cargo haulers were performing kamikaze runs, their holds packed with improvised explosives. Even the orbital platforms had revealed hidden weapons systems that hadn't appeared on any scan. But it was the human tactics that truly shocked them. Instead of trying to match the Nexari ship's superior maneuverability and firepower, they turned space itself into a weapon. Debris fields became killing grounds. Gas clouds from ruptured fuel tanks were ignited into expanding fireballs. Every defeat was turned into a trap. Every retreat became an ambush. "Sir," Miralan's voice was tense. "We're detecting unusual radiation signatures from the human frigates. They're deliberately overloading their reactor cores." Zextal's multiple hearts skipped a beat. They wouldn't. The humans would. The first frigate detonated like a miniature sun, its reactor explosion carefully calculated to catch 3 Nexari capital ships in the blast. As their crystalline hulls cracked and shattered, the humans used the debris as projectile weapons against other targets. "New signal from the colony," the communications officer reported. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Audio only. Play it." The voice that filled the command deck was calm, almost conversational. "This is Colonel Elena Santos of the New Athens Defense Force to all Nexari vessels. I see you've chosen to test our combat capabilities firsthand. Allow me to demonstrate why that was a mistake. The remaining human ships executed a maneuver that Zextal's tactical computers insisted was impossible. They dove straight through the debris field of their own destroyed frigate, using the radiation wake as sensor cover. Before Krastik's forces could reposition, they emerged firing every weapon they had, not at the ships themselves, but at specific structural points that their mining vessels had identified as crystalline stress nodes. 2 more Nexari capital ships shattered. The others began to retreat, their formation broken. But the humans weren't finished. Message from their ground forces, the communications officer reported, his crystalline form vibrating with disbelief. They're launching their orbital defense platforms. Launching them where? At the Nexari ships, sir. They've converted their entire orbital defense grid into kinetic kill vehicles. The platforms accelerated on pillars of fusion fire, their trajectories precisely calculated. Krastik's remaining ships found themselves caught between the platform's turn missiles and the human vessels herding them into the kill zone. The battle lasted another 23 minutes. When it was over, 13 Nexari capital ships were destroyed. The other 2 surrendered. Total human casualties: 1 frigate crew, who had sacrificed themselves to ensure the strategy's success. The colony itself was untouched. In the aftermath, Zextal received another transmission from Ambassador Chen. Her expression was grave but composed. I trust this demonstrates why further unauthorized military actions would be unwise. How? He found himself asking. Those were civilian ships, minimal weapons. The colony's defenses were a fraction of what Krastik brought to bear. You're still thinking like a Nexari, Commander. You see ships and weapons as having single, defined purposes. Humans? We see everything as a potential weapon. Those weren't civilian ships. They were weapons platforms we hadn't needed to activate yet. That wasn't a minimal defense force. It was exactly what we needed to spring the trap. You sacrificed one of your own ships, he noted. The crew volunteered, Chen finished, just like they trained for. Every human knows that survival sometimes requires sacrifice. We don't just accept that. We prepare for it. After she signed off, Zextal reviewed the battle footage again. The humans hadn't just defeated a superior force. They had done it in a way that sent a clear message to any other would-be attackers. They had turned a potential disaster into a demonstration of strength. Update our tactical databases, he ordered Miralyn. Tag every human vessel, every structure, every piece of equipment as a potential weapons platform, because that's how they think. All of them, sir. Even their medical ships. Especially their medical ships. If there's one thing we've learned today, it's that humans are most dangerous when you think you have them outgunned. His crystalline form shimmered with something between admiration and dread. And send word to the Imperial Council. The standard conquest protocols won't work here. We're not dealing with Civilization 38. We're dealing with something entirely new. In her office on New Athens, Colonel Santos was already preparing her after-action report. Not about the battle itself, that had gone exactly as simulated. No, this report was about the 17 new tactical innovations her forces had developed during the engagement. Because that's what humans did. They learned, they adapted, they improved. And somewhere in deep space, the remaining Nexari battle fleets received new orders. Avoid human space unless specifically invited. Some enemies you conquered. Others, if you were wise, you simply admired from a safe distance. The Imperial Academy of War Studies on Nexus Prime had never seen such chaos. Instructors who had confidently taught conquest strategies for centuries now found themselves questioning everything they knew. The footage from New Athens played on endless repeat in their crystalline halls. Civilian ships becoming weapons, defensive platforms turning offensive, and a single frigate crew sacrificing themselves with mathematical precision. War Master Vexlon watched his students argue beneath the floating holographic displays. But their technology is inferior, one insisted, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. Their ships are decades behind ours. Their ships, another countered, are exactly what they need them to be. Look at the mining vessel formations. Those weren't desperate improvisations. Those were practiced maneuvers. In his private chamber later that evening, Vexilon received a priority transmission from High Commander Zextal. The commander's crystalline form showed signs of stress fractures, micro-cracks that appeared in Nexari bodies during periods of extreme tension. "The situation is worse than we thought," Zextal began without preamble. "We've decoded more of their military archives. The New Athens defense, it wasn't their best strategy. It wasn't even their most aggressive response option. They were showing restraint." Vexilon's outer shell rippled with disbelief. Restraint? They destroyed 13 capital ships. Using only local assets and defending forces, we found training simulations, War Master, scenarios they prepare for. Their full military doctrine. Zextal's form shimmered. They have contingencies that make the New Athens incident look like a diplomatic exchange. The War Master accessed the decoded files. What he saw made his crystalline core pulse with primitive fear. Humanity didn't just prepare for invasion. They prepared for extinction-level events. Their military exercises included scenarios where they lost entire continents, where their civilization was reduced to ruins, and still they fought on. Still they won. "They're insane," he whispered. "No," Zextal corrected. "They're survivors, and they've turned survival into a science." Across Nexari space, the ripples of New Athens spread. Battle groups requested reassignment away from human borders. Veteran commanders who had led conquests of multiple civilizations now advised caution and diplomatic engagement. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had infected the mighty Nexari Empire with something it had never known before: doubt. Ambassador Chen noticed the change during her next diplomatic conference. The Nexari representatives kept their distance, their crystalline forms vibrating at frequencies that their xenopsychologists identified as anxiety. When she inquired about trade routes near human space, 3 delegates immediately offered to reroute Nexari shipping for safety concerns. "You're afraid of us," she remarked to Miralyn during a private moment. The science officer's response was careful. "We're reassessing our understanding of human capabilities. Because we beat Krastik's fleet. Because you did it without deploying your main battle groups. Without using your most advanced weapons." Miralyn's form pulsed with controlled agitation. "Because every analysis of the battle suggests you were holding back." Chen smiled slightly. "Would you believe me if I said we prefer peace? After seeing what you do in war, that's what terrifies us most." Miralyn's crystalline surface rippled. "You don't pursue war like the other species we've encountered. You don't seek glory or expansion or resources. You treat it like a survival situation." Chen finished. "Because that's what it is. Humans learned early in our history that war isn't about victory. It's about endurance, about adapting, about surviving long enough to ensure it never happens again." On Nexus Prime, War Master Vexilon made an unprecedented decision. For the first time in the Academy's history, he introduced a new course: Human Military Doctrine and Defensive Protocols. The first lesson began with a simple question that left his students in stunned silence. How do you defeat an enemy that treats total annihilation as a training scenario? The answer, as the Nexari Empire was learning, might be that you don't. You study them, you learn from them, and you pray they continue to prefer peace. Because humans hadn't just mastered the art of war, they had transcended it. They had looked into the abyss of their own extinction, and instead of flinching, had taken notes on how to survive it. In her quarters that night, Ambassador Chen reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Nexari military exercises near human space had dropped by 70%. Their conquest protocols were being rewritten. Their entire martial culture was shifting in response to humanity's demonstrated capabilities. "Update for Fleet Command," she subvocalized to her neural link. "Psychological operation successful. The Nexari aren't just respecting our borders, they're rethinking their entire approach to interstellar relations. Recommendation: proceed with Phase 2 of diplomatic engagement, because that was humanity's true strength, not the weapons they could deploy or the tactics they could execute, but their ability to make even the most warlike species question their assumptions about conflict itself. The Nexari had arrived expecting to find Civilization 38. Instead, they had found teachers who had mastered lessons they never knew they needed to learn. And somewhere in the vast databanks of human military command, the New Athens incident was already being analyzed, improved upon, and incorporated into future training scenarios. Because humans understood something that the Nexari were only beginning to grasp. The best way to survive a war was to make sure your potential enemies were too wise to start one. The Imperial Council chambers on Nexus Prime had never seen such division. The vast crystalline amphitheater, designed to amplify the harmonious resonance of unified decision-making, now hummed with discordant frequencies as the Empire's highest authorities faced an unprecedented crisis of confidence. Supreme Overlord Kexnar watched the factions clash beneath the floating holograms of human space. The recent events had split the Council into three camps: those who advocated for immediate military withdrawal from all human borders, those who insisted on maintaining the Empire's traditional stance of strength, and a growing minority who suggested something truly radical: learning from humanity. The Empire has stood for 12,000 years. Councillor Vaxtil's crystalline form blazed with indignation. We cannot abandon our principles of strength and superiority because of one unusual species that turned a mining colony into a graveyard for our most advanced battle group, War Master Vexilon countered. His next words sent shockwaves through the chamber. A species that treats our worst-case scenarios as basic training exercises. The hologram shifted to display footage that had been causing tremors throughout the Empire. Human military exercises, recently decoded, showed their forces practicing scenarios that the Nexari had never even considered. Nuclear winter survival drills, post-apocalyptic reconstruction protocols, tactics for fighting on after losing 90% of their forces. They're training their civilian population now, High Commander Zextal reported, his voice heavy. Teaching them advanced military techniques disguised as entertainment. Look at their survival games. Their disaster preparation drills. Every human is a potential warrior, and they don't even realize they're being trained. The council chamber erupted in overlapping frequencies of distress. A civilization that turned its entire population into an unconscious military reserve was beyond their experience. The Nexari Empire had always relied on specialized warrior castes, clear hierarchies of command, and defined military protocols. Humans, it seemed, had weaponized chaos itself. Ambassador Chen's next diplomatic transmission only heightened the Council's unease. She requested a cultural exchange program, offering to share human emergency response protocols and civil defense strategies. The footage accompanying her proposal showed ordinary human citizens practicing emergency procedures with casual efficiency. Notice, Miralyn pointed out to the Council, how their children participate in these drills. They're teaching complex tactical thinking through games. Their entertainment media simulates crisis scenarios. Every aspect of their society reinforces survival skills and adaptive thinking. A junior counselor's form pulsed with realization. They're not just preparing for war, they're evolutionarily optimized for it. The breaking point came during a routine survey of human space. A Nexari science vessel suffered catastrophic drive failure near a small human mining outpost. The response changed everything. Within minutes, the outpost's civilian ships had launched rescue operations. The miners, with no formal military training, executed complex zero-gravity maneuvers that matched anything in the Nexari tactical database. They improvised repairs using mining equipment in ways that even Nexari engineers hadn't considered. When the science vessel's commander asked why they had helped instead of taking advantage of the situation, the human mining chief just shrugged. That's what humans do. We help people. We solve problems. We survive. And we help others survive too. The footage of this incident played before the council as Supreme Overlord Kexnar rose to speak. His ancient crystalline form held the accumulated wisdom of centuries, and for the first time in his long reign, he felt genuine uncertainty. "We face a choice," he began. "Our empire has always grown through strength, through proving our superiority. We believed this was the natural order of things. But these humans," his form rippled with complex harmonics, "they have shown us something we never considered. True strength isn't about superiority. It's about survival, about adaptation, about turning every defeat into a lesson, every challenge into an opportunity." The council chamber hummed with tension as he continued. "We thought ourselves masters of warfare because we had never lost. The humans have mastered it because they've learned from every loss, every near extinction, every challenge they faced. They don't just survive. They emerge stronger." War Master Vexilon stepped forward. "The Academy's analysis is complete. We cannot defeat humanity through conventional means because they don't think in conventional terms. Every strategy we devise, they've already considered and developed counters for. Not because they're stronger, but because they never stop preparing, never stop adapting." "Then what do you suggest?" Vax still demanded. "That we simply accept this challenge to our superiority." "No." Kexnar's response silenced the chamber. "I suggest we learn from them. For 12,000 years, we have taught others our way of war. Perhaps it's time we became students ourselves." The council's decision that day marked the first time in Nexari history that the Empire formally acknowledged another species as their superior in the art of warfare. But more importantly, it marked the moment they began to understand that true power wasn't about being undefeated. It was about learning how to rise stronger from defeat. Ambassador Chen received the council's formal response with a knowing smile. The Nexari Empire hadn't just reached a breaking point. They had broken through to a new understanding of strength itself. And in doing so, they had demonstrated the very adaptability they so admired in humanity. "Update for command," she subvocalized. "Phase 2 complete. The Nexari aren't just accepting our existence. They're revolutionizing their entire society based on their observations of us. Recommend proceeding with full cultural exchange program. After all," she added with a slight smile, "the best way to ensure peace is to help your neighbors understand why war with you would be unwinnable." 5 years after first contact, the Nexari Human Cultural Exchange Center opened its crystalline doors on neutral ground in the Alpha Centauri system. The structure itself was a testament to the unprecedented collaboration between the species. Human-designed adaptive architecture grown from Nexari living crystal. Like everything humans created, it could transform from a peaceful academic facility into a hardened defensive position within minutes. High Commander Zextal, now serving as the Exchange Center's Nexari liaison, found Ambassador Chen in the simulation chamber. She was observing a mixed group of human and Nexari students running a joint crisis response drill. The scenario involved surviving on a hostile planet with minimal resources, once a nightmare for Nexari forces, now a standard training exercise. "Your people adapt quickly," Chen noted as a Nexari cadet successfully improvised a shelter using techniques learned from human survival training. 5 years ago, this would have been unthinkable. 5 years ago, we thought we understood warfare. Zextal's crystalline form had changed over the years, developing micro-patterns that humans recognized as signs of wisdom earned through experience. We didn't realize we only understood conquest. The simulation chamber shifted scenarios, presenting the mixed team with a cascading series of equipment failures. The human cadets instinctively began repurposing damaged gear, while their Nexari counterparts applied their crystalline technology in ways their ancestors would have found shocking. Together, they achieved solutions neither species would have developed alone. Supreme Overlord Kexnar's annual report arrived this morning, Zextal mentioned. The Empire's military efficiency has increased by 300% since implementing human-inspired training protocols. And how many worlds has the Empire conquered in that time? Chen asked with a knowing smile. None. There was a note of pride in Zextal's harmonic response. We're too busy learning how to survive. Although I suspect that was part of your strategy all along. In the 5 years since the New Athens incident, the Nexari Empire had undergone a transformation that rippled across the galaxy. Their once rigid military hierarchy had evolved into an adaptive force that emphasized individual initiative alongside collective strength. Their civilization, which had valued only victory, now understood the power of learning from defeat. The changes weren't limited to military matters. Nexari cities began incorporating human-inspired contingency designs, their crystal structures capable of reconfiguring for different threats. Their education system, once focused on maintaining tradition, now taught creative problem-solving and adaptive thinking. The Council has approved the Joint Defense Initiative, Zextal announced. We're actually going to do it. Combine Nexari crystal technology with human tactical doctrine to create an integrated defense force. Worried about losing your military edge by sharing technology? Chen teased. Zextal's form rippled with genuine amusement. 5 years ago. Absolutely. Now, we understand what your people figured out long ago. True strength isn't about having the best weapons. It's about having the wisdom to keep growing, keep adapting, keep learning. In the simulation chamber, the mixed team had not only survived their crisis scenario, but had discovered 3 new tactical applications for Nexari crystal technology. The human cadets had instinctively approached the living crystal as a multi-purpose tool rather than a specialized technology. The Nexari students, in turn, had begun showing the same creative flexibility that had once terrified their elders. We received an interesting request from the Imperial Academy of War Studies, Chen mentioned. They want to include Earth's pre-spaceflight conflicts in their core curriculum. Apparently, your historians are fascinated by how humans managed to advance through repeated near-extinction events. Can you blame them? Your species turned survival itself into an art form. Which reminds me. Zextal's form shifted to project a holographic report. The latest comparative analysis of human and Nexari emergency responses. We're finally approaching your efficiency levels in crisis management. Only took you 5 years to match what we learned in 50,000 years of trying to kill ourselves. Chen chuckled. I'd say that's pretty impressive progress. The Exchange Center's central atrium displayed a new addition, a crystal monument that shifted between different configurations, each representing a milestone in human-Nexari cooperation. The current shape showed 2 hands, one human and one crystalline, clasped together. The younger generations don't remember a time when our species feared each other, Zextal observed. To them, this is natural. Humans teaching survival, Nexari teaching crystal manipulation, both species growing stronger together. Isn't that the greatest victory? Chen gestured to the cadets emerging from the simulation chamber, human and Nexari alike congratulating each other on their performance. Not defeating an enemy, but transforming them into allies, partners, students and teachers both, Zextal agreed. His form resonated with harmonics that the human xenologists now recognized as deep satisfaction. Though I'm still not entirely sure which of us is which. The answer, of course, was both. The Nexari had learned to survive like humans, while humans had gained new appreciation for the power of unity and tradition. Together, they had created something unprecedented, a partnership that made both species stronger not through conquest or competition, but through mutual growth and understanding. As the sun set over the Exchange Center, casting rainbow refractions through its crystalline walls, Ambassador Chen updated her final report to Earth Command. Project Enlightenment complete. The Nexari Empire hasn't just abandoned its conquest protocols, it has evolved beyond them. In seeking to understand how humans survive, they have learned why we strive for peace. Victory achieved not through force of arms, but through force of example. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been their ability to fight. It had been their ability to teach others that true strength comes not from winning every battle, but from learning from every experience, victory or defeat, triumph or disaster. The Nexari Empire had sought to become humanity's conquerors, only to become their most dedicated students instead. And in that transformation lay humanity's most profound victory of all.